Sherin is a sociologist of religion specialized in Islam. You are an imam. You are an activist who works to give women in your community, in your Muslim community, more rights and leadership roles by offering a gender-sensitive interpretation of the religion. Hence, this book, Women Are the Future of Islam.
So there are at least 3 narratives, hadiths, about women who led the prayer for other women. Women had a very distinguished role when it comes to disseminating the Islamic message. What happened? How come that we Muslims in 2018 still do not give women the basic right to serve as female imams in our societies? How come that we have normalized these patriarchal structures within our religious institutions, within our societies, in the reading of the Quran, in our families? Men have monopolized the interpretation of the Quran for many, many years. And unfortunately, some of the readings of the Quran have discriminated women in different spheres. I had my first vision of a mosque with female imams in Syria when I saw Sheikh Ahmed Kuftaru giving his khutbah, leading the prayer in the Abu Nur mosque. And I had my first vision. I visioned a mosque with female imams, with a female mufti. And I thought, what would happen if the mufti was a woman or if the imam was a woman? I remember that we were always standing on the balcony looking at the mufti, and there was this distance, not only a physical distance, but also a mental distance, because we couldn't be close to the Grand Imam. And I wanted to change that. I wrote the first manifesto. It's called a Muslim Manifesto, where we were talking about our vision of a mosque with female imams. We were the first Muslim organization in Denmark who had a female leadership. So we introduced the concept of female leadership, of female Muslim spokespersons in Denmark.
I think the main important thing with this mosque is that it's breaking a lot of taboos, if I may say. So you are doing things that are widely contested within the Muslim community. You did officiate a series, or let's say, I think 20 or more of interfaith marriages. You are giving women the right to divorce. It felt to me it's more like a home, a social, religious home, rather than a mosque in the classical way.
Yes, it is like the house mosque used to be in Medina, because before the mosque became official, you had these house mosques in different homes. So in Denmark, we don't have a tradition of having these grand mosques, so it's also a matter of culture and possibilities.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the controversy worldwide is not about women leading women in prayer, it's more about mixed prayers.
So the Mariam Mosque is a women's mosque on Friday. But on all other days, it's an all-inclusive mosque for all. And we have men who comes to pray, we have men who comes for the dhikr, for the academy, for the Islamic spiritual care. If you want to create change, you have to be aware, and you have to do it very slowly. And you cannot burn all the bridges behind you, because then you cannot be a bridge builder. We are on safe theological ground. 3 out of 4 Islamic schools allow female imams leading the prayer for other women. So a mosque with female imams leading the prayer for other women, it's not controversial at all. And because we are on safe theological ground, we do not receive any kind of criticism, and we can make the real important revolutions, which are women's right to serve as female imams, women's right to disseminate the Islamic message through the khutbah every Friday after Friday, week after week, year after year, women's right to interfaith marriage, etc. We have developed 9 theses of reform based on Islamic principles of justice. And some of the most acute dilemmas of our time today is the fact that Muslim women do not have the basic right to divorce. And we are trying to change that. We have constructed a new Islamic marital contract And it is stated clearly that Muslim women have the right to divorce, polygamy is forbidden. If mental or physical violence occur, the marriage is annulled. And you might think, some of you, why is this important? Because we live in Europe, and it's European law that counts legally. And Islamic marriage or divorce do not count legally, and that's true. But within the Muslim communities, the Islamic marriage counts spiritually, religiously, psychologically, and the same goes for the divorce. And in the Mariam Mosque, we have decided to conduct interfaith marriages. What makes the whole difference is that we have established a mosque. We have made it possible for women to marry non-Muslims. We have conducted more than 30 Islamic marriages, and half of them are interfaith marriages.
Who can say that what you're doing is legitimate or not?
The question of legitimacy? The question of legitimacy is always based on three things: knowledge, Islamic theology, and need. So, if people come to us, this means that we have legitimacy. If people seek us, it means that we have legitimacy. Legitimacy is based on need, and it's based on people accepting you as an authority. We are going back to the roots, we are going back to the sources, and we're rereading the Quran according to our times and our societies. So the things that we are doing, it's not a reformation, because we're actually going back to the roots.
Are you suggesting that we should reread the Word of God?
I think it's very natural to reread the Quran. We have to read it all the time, and we have to reread it. And every time we read the Quran, it's like an ocean. You see new things, and you get inspired, and you get affected. So, and it's not something new what we're doing. Women and men throughout times have read and reread the Quran again and again and again. So it's actually something that we are obliged to do.
Why did you decide to do it within a religious framework? I'm wondering, why don't you fight for women's rights outside a religious framework? And so in that case you will be serving Muslims and non-Muslims, which is basically the formula you grew up with.
We have some specific problems within our practices of Islam. And if you want to solve that, if you want to find Islamic solutions to existing dilemmas in the youth, you have to operate in the religious sphere. So this is a part of our activism. In order to create change within the religious sphere, you have to act within the religious sphere. You cannot only use human rights arguments, even though that I believe that the majority of the human rights arguments are also present within the Islamic tradition. When I was preparing myself to lead the first Friday prayer back in 2016 in August, together with Saliha Maria Fete, a convert, and I was putting on actually this galabia that I'm wearing today. It's a present from my father from Syria, and I was putting on my scarf, and my 4 children were watching me. And my youngest daughter, Halima, she was 5 years at that time. And her friend was visiting the house, and she asked, she whispered in Halima's ears, "What is an imam?" And then Halima, she looked at me with very proud eyes, and she said, "Don't you know? An imam is a woman who's doing great things." So it is possible to change status quo. It is possible to change a narrative. It is possible to challenge the growing Islamophobia, and we just have to go out there and create that change. And we don't need to be a mass movement. We don't need a big grand mosque to create change. You just need a small place and gather a group of people, and then you can create that change on the ground. Thank you so much.